You probably grew up thinking the founding fathers were these flawless marble saints, right? Stoic, noble, perfect role models carved into history books. Well, hate to break it to you, but that's not the whole story. Behind the statues and the dollar bills, these guys had some downright bizarre secrets. One president clamped down on dentures made from, get this, hippo-ivory and other people's teeth. Another had a dog literally named Satan. And one of them, he used a skinny dip in the Potomac River until a female reporter basically held his clothes hostage just to get an interview. Sounds like something you'd overhear as a joke at a backyard BBQ, right? Except, it's all real, documented American history. So today, we're diving into 7 of the weirdest, funniest, and occasionally creepiest facts about America's earliest presidents. And trust me, after this, you'll never look at a dollar bill or the phrase, all men are created equal, the same way again. George Washington might be the father of our country, but he was also the poster child for dental nightmares. By the time he became president, he only had one real tooth left. And no, despite what you may have heard, his dentures were not made of wood. They were worse. A Frankenstein contraption built from human teeth, cow teeth, horse teeth, hippopotamus ivory, and metal springs holding it all together. Imagine trying to eat corn on the cob with that in your mouth. The dentures shifted, creaked, and pushed his jaw out of shape so badly that painters had to adjust his portraits. Ever notice how Washington never smiles on the dollar bill? That's not dignity. That's dental pain. And here's the kicker. Those dentures were so uncomfortable that Washington constantly complained about headaches, stomach issues, even depression linked to the stress. Historians say it made him more irritable and possibly even influenced how he led. So next time you picture Washington bravely crossing the Delaware, just imagine him doing it while clenching a set of hippo-ivory chompers that sounded like a haunted door hinge. John Adams might not be as famous as Washington crossing the Delaware or Jefferson writing the Declaration, but he left behind one of the strangest White House stories ever. Among his pets, Adams had 2 dogs we know by name, one called Juno and the other Satan. Yep, you heard that right. In the most powerful house in America, somebody was yelling Satan heel every time they took the dog for a walk. Why the name? No one's totally sure. Some historians think it was Adams' famously dry sense of humor. Others guess the pup was such a mischievous little menace that the name just fit. But imagine this. You're a diplomat walking up to the president's home in the early 1800s, stressed about taxes or a possible war with Britain, when suddenly a dog comes charging at you, barking like crazy. And Adams shouts across the lawn, "Satan, quiet down." Sounds like a scene from a political satire sketch, right? But it actually happened, and it says a lot about Adams' offbeat, sometimes awkward personality. Turns out, the devil's been living in the White House a lot longer than modern politics would have you believe. Thomas Jefferson, the guy who wrote that famous line, "All men are created equal," carried one of the most controversial family secrets in American history. For decades it was whispered about, but by the late 20th century, DNA evidence confirmed it. Jefferson fathered at least 6 children with an enslaved woman named Sally Hemings. And here's the jaw-dropper. Sally wasn't just any enslaved woman. She was actually the half-sister of Jefferson's wife. So yes, Jefferson spent his life with someone who was both enslaved and part of his wife's family. Even more painful, the children born from that relationship were still legally enslaved. Jefferson never publicly acknowledged them. Historians still debate, was this love or was it an unequal relationship shaped entirely by the reality of slavery? We'll never fully know. But what we do know is this. Jefferson, the eloquent writer of freedom and equality, lived with a bitter contradiction between his ideals and his private life. He wrote that all men are created equal, but somehow forgot to apply it under his own roof. James Madison, the so-called father of the Constitution, might just be the best example of why you should never judge a man by his height. In real life, Madison stood about 5'4" and weighed less than 100 pounds. the smallest president in U.S. history. His nickname, Little Jimmy. But don't let the size fool you. That tiny frame carried a massive brain. Madison was the chief architect of the Constitution, co-wrote the Bill of Rights, and co-founded the Democratic Republican Party. Fun fact, in portraits, artists often cheated his height, placing him near podiums or arranging the scene so he didn't look like a kid standing next to the other founding fathers.
Just a slight adjustment.
Today,
Mr.
the
Madison.
internet has a term for confident short guys, the short king. And honestly, Madison was the OG short king of the White House. He might have been small in a crowd, but in history, Madison stood tall on pure brain power. James Monroe, America's 5th president, holds a record no other president can claim. He's the only U.S. president with a foreign capital city named after him. That city is Monrovia, the capital of Liberia in West Africa, Liberia. Here's the backstory. In the early 1800s, as the movement to end slavery gained momentum in the U.S., Monroe and many leaders of his time supported an idea that today feels complicated. Instead of pushing for full integration of free African Americans into American society, they backed resettlement in Africa. Out of that plan came Liberia. And in 1822, its capital was named Monrovia in Monroe's honor. Some saw it as a well-meaning attempt to give free black Americans a new start. Others, especially modern historians, point out it was also a way to sidestep America's racial divisions by literally shipping the problem overseas. Either way, Monrovia still stands on the map today, a reminder of those contradictions when America preached liberty while struggling to live up to it at home. Washington got the capital of the United States. Monroe, he went international, collecting a capital city in Africa. Like being president of just one country wasn't enough. John Quincy Adams, son of President John Adams and the 6th president himself, wasn't just known for politics. He was also known for one of the strangest daily routines you'll ever hear about a commander-in-chief. Every morning, Adams would strip down completely and take a naked swim in the Potomac River, right near the White House. For him, it was exercise, relaxation, and his way to clear his head before tackling the day. This went on so regularly that in 1825, journalist Anne Royal came up with a pretty bold plan to score an interview. While Adams was swimming, she sat right down on his pile of clothes and refused to budge until he answered her questions, which makes John Quincy Adams the only U.S. president in history to be interviewed fully nude. Now, if a politician tried this today, forget the interview. It would be trending on Twitter before they even got out of the water. But back in the 19th century, it just turned into one of those weird but true anecdotes that makes history so fun. Some people talk about government transparency. John Quincy Adams took it literally. Andrew Jackson, the 7th president, wasn't just hot-tempered in debates. He was hot-tempered enough to pull a trigger. Over his lifetime, Jackson fought in more than 100 duels, many of them over personal honor or to defend his wife's reputation. One of the most famous happened in 1806, when a young lawyer named Charles Dickinson insulted Jackson's wife. Jackson immediately challenged him. Dickinson fired first, hitting Jackson square in the chest. The bullet lodged dangerously close to his heart. But here's the wild part. Jackson stayed standing, cool as ever, aimed his pistol, and shot Dickinson dead on the spot. That bullet wound never left him. It caused pain for the rest of his life. Yet it also cemented his reputation as a tough-as-nails fighter who didn't back down no matter what. Of course, if a modern politician tried to settle scores this way, their career would be over before the smoke cleared. But in the 19th century, Jackson turned it into part of his personal legend. He didn't just fight political battles. He literally shot people to defend his honor. The founding fathers we usually see on dollar bills and in textbooks. Turns out they were pretty ordinary guys. Ordinary with bizarre habits, awkward secrets, and stories that sound like late-night comedy sketches, but are 100% real history. So what do you think? Which fact shocked you the most? And be honest, if a modern president tried some of this stuff, from naming his dog Satan to skinny dipping in the Potomac, would he even stand a chance at getting elected? Drop your thoughts down below. I genuinely think everyone will see these stories a little differently. And it's your comments and debates that make this community way more fun than just me talking at you. And hey, don't go far. This was just the warm-up. In the next video, we're diving into 5 of the weirdest pets ever to live in the White House. From dogs and cats to, yes, even a raccoon on a leash and an American panda. You won't believe the menagerie that once roamed the halls of power.